In this video, we're going to talk about on-page ranking factors. These are the factors that the search engines will evaluate to figure out if your web page should rank higher than any other web page. So first, we're going to talk about content. What are the factors that are evaluated by a search engine when we're considering our content? We're always told that we need more content and better content, but what does that really mean? So the basic factors that a search engine looks at: quality of content, the research that goes into the content, the words that are used, and how engaging it is. So quality is kind of a flexible topic because quality on a pop culture website like a TMZ.com is something very different than quality on a advanced dermatology website designed for dermatologists. So the words they use, the way they talk about things, the vernacular is all completely different. So we want to make sure that our quality is good for our target audience. We want to know who we're writing for. But we also want to make sure that the research that goes into it is appropriate for the type of content we're doing. So let's say someone's searching for trilobite fossils. They want to know what those are. They don't understand what they are. They want to know what kind of rock they're in, where in the world are they found, why are they found there, like how are they evolved, like what starts that turns into a fossil. So all these questions that somebody might have about a trilobite fossil specifically kind of centers around how much research you put into it. Your ability to put this on the page well organized is really going to affect how your page ranks. And so you want to use the right words, the right keywords. You want to make sure that you're using over and over the types of keywords that people would search for that would ultimately lead to your page. And so this is a big indication of relevance. If I type in trilobite fossil location and you have a subsection of that web page called trilobite fossil locations, then that's a highly relevant section. And so you got to prepare for a very sophisticated algorithm to come along and read your page, digest everything, interpret its meaning, and then catalog it based on what we think everything means. And then, of course, engagement is very important because it's how often people use it, how often they share it, how many people come and actually read your page and stay there. And so metrics like time on site, return visitor, these are all engagement metrics that are very, very important to prove that your content is valuable. You also want to make sure that your demographic is considered when you're writing. So if you're writing for a teenage audience, you would use very different words than if you were writing for a very advanced, maybe PhD level audience. And so it's important that you consider who is reading it and that you write to the appropriate level. And then lastly, you want to make sure that you're very, very clear so the search engine can understand what you're saying. And in a previous video, I used an example of people that make websites and don't ever use the keywords. So you want to go farther than that. You actually want to use a tool or something that will tell you the keyword density on the page. So keyword density is probably a new term for you. It's the number of times that you use the keyword that you're trying to target on a page versus any other page. And in a second, I'm going to show you a tool that I use to track on-page factors. And it actually has a measuring tool for keyword density. It's a tool called SEOquake, and it's on SEOquake.com. And I'll show you a screenshot in just a second. So when we're talking about the actual structure of the page, as far as content, one of the most important factors is we have to think about attracting people to our web page. And this is done in the HTML. And so what I mean by that is if someone does a search and our listing pops up number 2, number 3 on Google, they're going to quickly scan and look at 1, 2, and 3 and make a decision, right? Rarely are we going to go much more than just a millisecond or two at looking at a listing to decide if we're going to click on it. And so you want to be very descriptive on your listing and make sure that any potential keywords that they write are going to show up on your listing. Well, how is a Google listing generated? So there's two factors. The first one is in the title, the HTML title. And this is actually the code for how an HTML title looks in your code of your web page. It would have the HTML opening tag of title, caret, and then it says put your web page here, and then a closing tag which is caret/title caret. So HTML is typically a 2-tag system where it says, here comes the title, and at the end it says that was the title. So it's very descriptive, very easy to understand. Now the HTML title, if you remember on the previous video, it's what shows up in the top of the browser, up in the tab. And so the HTML title on that for, I believe we were looking at Tony Baloney's Pizza. So for TonyBaloney's.com, the HTML title talked about nationwide delivery, the taco pizza that they are famous for. And so an HTML title that's in that web browser is also what's going to be the title on our listing on Google. Google just pulls it straight from our web page and puts it up there. So you want to make sure that it's relevant to your keywords and that it's going to attract someone to your site. And then below the title on the listing is the meta description. The meta description on our web page in HTML looks like this. It says meta, name equals description, content equals, and then here comes your meta description. So on a meta description, you want to make sure that, again, you're using your keywords and you're talking about what people are looking for, so it's very relevant to their search. Now, what happens when somebody types a keyword into a search engine? And we have that in our title and our meta description? Well, it's going to hold those in bold. And so it's going to draw more attention to our listing and we're going to get a higher click-through rate. So you want to make sure that you're optimizing your meta title and your meta description, or HTML title and meta description is the proper way to say it. The next thing that we want to worry about is on our page, when the user starts to read our page, they're going to see the title of our web page. So those first two things we showed, those are hidden in the head of the document in the code, the HTML title and the meta description. They don't natively appear on the web page. The first title that appears on a web page should be what's called an H1 tag. The H1 tag is a header level 1 tag, meaning it's the number one, the highest level, it's the main topic for a website. So the H1 tag is the title at the beginning of your content. That's what your user should see. I feel like that should match the HTML title almost perfectly. We want to have the same keywords, the same kind of thought going into the title because that's the title we've given to the search engine. And so if a user sees it on the search engine, we want them to see it on our web page. Now, there really should only be one H1 tag on a page. If we have multiple, then we're telling Google that it's about multiple things, and it really isn't. Each web page should have kind of a main focus on it. Now, when we get into breaking down that topic, we get into subtopics. And if we want to put a heading at the top, at the front of each one of these paragraphs, that's where we would use the H2, the level 2 title. Now, a typical page would go H1 at the top and then H2, 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 except if we need to go kind of subtopic, like, here's where we're located and then here's directions to get to that location, subtopic, we might use an H3. And you can keep drilling down into a thought pattern all the way to H4, H5, all the way out to H8. But then once you finish that line of thought, you need to go back to the H2. So it should be an H1 with a whole bunch of H2s. Now here's an example of a web page. This is for the marketing department at the Eccles School of Business. And the title for users at the top of the page is Department of Marketing. I've actually highlighted it in red. You can see it says Department of Marketing. Now, when this web page was first launched, the Department of Marketing's website actually stopped ranking. It kind of disappeared off the search engine for a while. They had a previous website that ranked very high, and then when they flipped to the new site, they lost a lot of their ranking. Well, why did they lose it? Well, if you look at this web page, the Department of Marketing is the main title. It's the homepage for the Department of Marketing. And then marketing curriculum, course scheduling guide, these subtopics you can see on the page would naturally be H2s. Well, when I ran that tool that I mentioned before, SEOquake.com, it's an extension that you can put into your Chrome browser, Safari, or I believe Firefox, and you can run an analysis on any web page. And what I did is I did what's called the diagnosis. I ran an on-page audit, and it runs very quickly, just a couple of seconds. And it says right here in the middle, let me highlight it. So it says, as far as headings, there's 0 H1s, 3 H2s, an H3, an H4, 4 H5s, and 0 H6s. So this makes no sense. You really shouldn't have a structure that looks like that. The structure should be kind of pyramid shape. One H1, multiple H2s, multiple H3s, but this is kind of this weird hourglass structure with really no main topic. And so because of that, the web page, I'm sure, was penalized and disappeared off the ranking. So Anyway, just a note about this tool. So SEOquake, when you install it, it has a very intrusive nature. It'll start to mess with your search engine and your web pages. And so what I recommend is if you install it, go ahead and put it in, and then you can actually flip a toggle switch on the settings to turn all of the automatic pop-ups and everything off. And then if you notice in my screenshot here up in my browser bar, there's a little tiny SEOquake login. It's probably too hard to see on the video, but you just click on that and it'll run your SEOquake tool on the web page that you're on. Anyway, if you have any questions, go ahead and message me and I'd be happy to explain how this works. Okay, so in the next video, we're going to switch gears from on-page factors to the factors that are off of the website, we call off-page factors. So I'll see you in the next video.